the future is, but it'll never be our past. Even distance in your world will never ever change the past. Hey everybody, it's Fight Club Hobbs, and welcome to another glorious episode of GVN Live. There's Jan. There's Mark. How you guys doing today?
Mark is trying not to die.
Well, I just went on Twitter and found out that Asuka lost the women's title to Charlotte, so
we just talked about that.
Man, I am very glad that I did not want to renew my subscription to the WWE Network.
Yeah.
Because they are making it super easy for me to just be like, yeah, no,
I don't care.
Never again.
Yeah, the big rumor is they're going to unify the women's title now.
Yeah, because that's what they need to do. The problem wasn't with the fact that their booking is fucking terrible, and they decided to take all of the people that they had in any type of title contention and put them on one show, so their only response was to put fucking Mandy Rose into it. So it's like, oh, well, we'll just unify the titles because there's not enough competition for two. That's the problem. That's the problem. There just wasn't enough competition.
Whatever.
Yeah. But what have you been playing, Mark?
So I bought the Division 2. I played that 3 times, and I've decided, well, that was a complete waste of my goddamn money.
I could have told you that just from playing the betas.
Well, it's, my friends were playing it, so I was like, you know what? I'll try that.
Fair enough.
I don't understand who that, like, I don't understand the design philosophy behind the game in general. Just because the storyline missions are deeply easy. Like, you could get through them solo without it being a particularly big problem. There's little to no actual challenge involved in them, even solo, even during the points where, respawns aren't allowed. Like, I've never been in a point where I felt threatened playing the story missions. And it's very strange because just the moment-to-moment gameplay, I just find it to be deeply unfriendly, frustrating, challenging in the wrong ways. You'll just be walking down the street. You'll just leave a place, and you'll just be in the position where, oh, now I have to fight like 6 dudes. And the only other option will be to Tenchu your way around that shit and pray to God that nobody notices you.
Pretty much.
Getting to a location that you have never been to before, like, because you can fast travel to places you've been to. Getting to a location you've never been to before, or getting to a location for a specific event in the world map, will take you, 3, 4, 5 different encounters sometimes just to get through it. And it's very strange to me how this works, just because, like, I don't get the idea of actively making it difficult to accomplish things out in the world. Like, this is the exact opposite design philosophy that, like Destiny has, for example. In Destiny, you go around the world, and just the stuff that you meet, you can basically destroy by yourself. The game isn't trying to make an experience that is particularly multiplayer required up until, like, certain aspects of the game, like the end game, the raids and stuff like that. And here, for some strange reason, it's like they want to enforce the idea of multiplayer, but only to the extent that it requires you to get from place to place, because actually performing tasks, getting into missions, you can still do solo and it's fine. It's just the weirdest goddamn design philosophy, and I'm not 100% certain who this is for. You know what I'm saying? I don't hate it. If there's somebody out there in the world who's like, yeah, this is for me, good on you. I'm glad that, that this game exists to, make you happy. I just can't, in my mind, I can't wrap my head around the idea of, who would want to do this, so like where this would be a thing where you'd be like, yeah, this is, definitely a thing that I want to go through. It's very strange to me because I've just never seen a game of this type do what this game is doing before. It's very weird. So I don't hate it. I don't think it's an invalid way of doing things. I just don't get why you would do it. I just can't mentally wrap my head around the idea of what would make a developer say, this is the way we want to do business. But for me, like, none of that was really the deal breaker. The deal breaker was, like, I had been going through a particularly frustrating point play-wise. The people that I am playing with, I had not been able to play for a couple of days over the weekend. I didn't play at all on Friday because I was doing live streaming, and then I didn't play on Saturday because we had board game night. And the two people that I was playing with, did not make any kind of concession to that fact. So, and they played, like, I didn't play at all on Sunday because nobody said we were doing anything. So when I logged in on Monday, they were 15 levels ahead of me. And now the game allows for the ability to work in a team much better than it used to, where the game will generally be scaled roughly to within a level or two of the highest level player. So in theory, this is fine. It means that, you're still functionally capable of doing stuff in a group of disaffected levels. Everybody will just be scaled to whatever the highest level player is.
That almost sounds kind of like playing Fallout 76, except the game is scaled to the highest ranked player in the party, and the people who are low level are just fucked.
Yeah, though, I mean, I will note that, the zones in Fallout 76 maintain a consistent set level requirement. So even in a zone in Fallout 76, there's a level cap. You can go into a level 10 zone, and that's the highest level enemy that you will encounter. There are a couple of zones where there's, a much higher maximum level in Fallout 76, but the majority of the levels have level caps that are friendly for a certain specific style of play. So unless you are going into a zone with a level 50 player, you're probably into a level 50 zone, a level 50 player, you're not going to encounter that kind of thing. And like, if you're a level 20 player going into a level 50 zone with a level 50 player, you're either doing it for a reason or you're stupid. Like the level cap.
Column A, column B, right?
Right. Like either or you're being trolled. You could be being trolled. That's also a possibility.
Yeah.
But like in general, the zones dictate the difficulty level. In this game, the zones match up to your difficulty level. There is a minimum difficulty level that a zone can be. So, you can't go into the zones that start at level 25 at the lowest difficulty without expecting to get your ass smeared all over the countryside. Fine. But the introductory zones will always map rank upward. Like, if you go into the White House zone, which is the default zone in the game, and you walk outside at level 30, all the enemies out there will be fucking level 30. The game will always be mapping to you, which again, it makes the idea of attempting to make forward progress consistently challenging, in that if you attempt to go somewhere, it's a pain in the ass. Once you get there, it's usually not that bad. Like, if you get to a story mission, you can probably complete it without very many deaths, and the story mission will let you respawn inside the story mission grounds. But the act of physically walking there will just get you killed. And they will have events that will be going on in the game world that are, the Ubisoft game events. Like, here's a control point, take the control point. Here's this, here's that. But in a game like Fallout 76, everybody can participate in these events, but these events are scaled in a way so that players can accomplish them on their own if they choose to. In the Division, it's the opposite. Only the people in your particular instanced outdoor server will be seeing these events. So, unless you're in a party, you are never going to be running into other players while you are playing the game. Unless you, like, call for help because you die. And that sucks because if you're not in a party, you can't accomplish things a lot of times because you'll go into a zone and it'll be like, oh, well, here's this thing. And it's like there's 10 dudes against you. So the group that I'm in, the two of them together have accomplished basically everything they would conceivably want to do with this. Nobody really wants to help me with any of the stuff that I'm doing at this point because they've done it all. They've done it all.
Of course.
Teamwork
like
makes the dream work.
Like, yeah, this just as a general reference purposes, like this is why I rarely ever talk about having local friends because my local friends are shit. I'm sorry, my local friends are fucking shit. This is what it is. So we go through an hour and a half of play and we do one story mission, which they haven't been doing the story missions. Like, this is the one conceit that I have gotten, I guess.
Really?
Nobody wants to do any of the control stuff that I have. Nobody wants to do any of the side missions that I have unless it's like, the stuff where they're, like where they get like shitloads of collectibles.
Mm-hmm.
But like they'll do the story missions. Okay. Fine, whatever. They're talking about like they're at the level where they're getting the highest possible grade of drop that you can get, which is the gold drops.
Mm-hmm.
I am still getting greens regularly because I am at like the bottom fucking tier. Like I'm not getting grays anymore. I'm not getting the worst of the worst, but I'm getting greens regularly because I'm that low level. So, it's I don't have available to me all of the buffs that they have because once your gear gets beyond a certain level, you start being able to equip buffs that I just can't equip. So I'm still, from a functional value perspective, I'm still basically lower level and less viable than they are.
Mm.
By the way, if you're now tuning in, welcome to GVN Live. Mark is going on a nice long rant about the Division 2. We'll get to our other topics shortly after.
Like I'm not I'm trying to keep it brief, but it's just
Take your time.
Eventually it gets to the point where like we have done the story mission, it's fine, whatever. We go to a new location that exists in the game world. For them, they've been here already. I've been killed 20 times trying to accomplish things. I'm trying to accomplish basic stuff for me, and like nobody's helping me with this, so I'm just getting murdered. And I am the weakest person in this party, so of course I'm just dying on principle. We go into this zone, and I select a mission that I want to do. The just directional pip that comes up shows me where to go, and it directs me to a part of the map where, I find 2 doors on them marked exit. Neither of those doors open. They are not exits. So I'm attempting to maneuver around where the pip says that it is. And the pip is directing me, go here. There's no exit. It's not showing me. I'm going to the place where it says exit. And finally, I'm just like, where the fuck is the exit? And my one friend just goes, not over there. And I was just like, I fucking can't. I can't play this goddamn piece of shit anymore. I hate you all. And I just fucking like logged out. Because if your game is telling me to go to this location to exit, and there's a sign up that says exit, and I can't exit, and the actual exit is nowhere near there, fuck you. Like, I'll put up with a lot of bullshit from games, but make your base fucking shit work.
Mm-hmm.
And this is coming from a guy that enjoyed Nekopara.
I didn't enjoy Nekopara. Also, I pronounced this like 10 goddamn times, motherfucker.
So
it's Neko. Neko! Like the wafer!
Derp. How is that easy or difficult? It's just Hubs.
Hubs is just pushing buttons. That's all Hubs is doing.
Hubs is a piece of shit.
Well, you said all your local friends are shit, so I'm sure I was in there somewhere.
I was going to say something about it, but...
Listen, I haven't seen you in like a year. You don't count.
Fair.
Okay. Jan, what have
Like
you
if
been
you
playing?
if you want to come to a board game night, then I'll incorporate you back in there. But until you do, you don't count.
That's
Sorry.
great.
Well, I'm not exactly local. I still have to drive at least over an hour to get to you. So I'm your
Just
long.
sounds like something you should plan for.
I'm a medium distance friend.
That's fair.
Jan would be the
Oh,
long distance friend because she's on the other side of the goddamn country.
Yeah, well, that's a thing that happens.
Yeah. But hey, Jan, what have you been playing?
Let's see here. Finished DMC 5. Good ending. I love how self-aware that game is about itself. Like, just the series in general. It's just self-aware, and I think that's something that's been a huge... Like, this is a thing that Capcom has needed in the Devil May Cry series for a long time, and it's finally back, so it's like... Thank you, Capcom, for that. That was good. I want to play Sekiro, but I also don't hate myself that much.
I picked it up. I haven't played it yet.
So I'm playing Neo. Because I hate myself, but not that much. Not Sekiro enough. Like, it's like on a scale of 1 to dying, how would you rate the game? Yeah, so playing more Soul Calibur again. The new balance patch just came out a couple of days ago, so that's welcome. Then they announced Amy and released her, and I'm like, we already had Raphael. Why do we need 2 rape-using dumbasses?
Except Amy's good.
I don't care. They're both terrible characters in my eye.
I like
but
Amy.
I'm also a Talim main, so
Yeah.
take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, fuck your lolly. Well, technically, Amy would be one too.
I would go to jail for that because that's illegal in my country.
Next subject.
I'm still gonna do that Marie Hero thing I told you about earlier. I'm still gonna do it to you. It's gonna happen one of these days. Just you wait. We were talking about DOA 6 the other night, and he started going off about Marie Rose again, and I'm like, I'm gonna buy a Marie Rose Opie mouse pad.
I'll quit.
I'm gonna rub it all over you.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Wait, Mark wasn't threatening to quit the show?
I want nothing to do with goddamn Marie Rose. Keep
Look,
your fucking lolly shit to your goddamn self.
I do.
See, I think me and Mark actually have something in common for once.
You have lots of stuff in common.
Marie Rose is the worst goddamn thing to happen to DOA since 4. What was her name? Alpha?
It's Phase 4 now.
Well, Phase 4 and Alpha were in 5, so...
Yeah.
Besides, Phase
now, but either way.
Phase 4 is a different Kasumi clone.
And they're all Kasumi clones, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But, no, the, gosh, I don't know. 14 just came out with its new story patch today, so that was really epic. God, I can't wait for the expansion. 3 months. It's like waiting for a new season of, like, the anime that you've been dying to continue.
I'm probably
now
going
you
to be
gotta
waiting a year
wait for the entire new season.
Yeah, I gotta wait a year for the next season of Goblin Slayer. Whoop de fucking do.
Or you can just read the mangas. Like,
I could.
Robert can't read.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
That's why I read picture books.
That's what manga is.
Yeah, but there's words.
Oh.
So you can see how that's a problem.
Yeah, and if I look at a
yeah.
manga, I have the urge to pick up a crayon.
Okay.
See between the lines. Outside of that, nothing really super new. That's pretty much just it. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty much just been real basic stuff. DMC5 was fantastic. I'm super happy about it. Sekiro looks great. I'm watching other people play it. I don't want to deal with it. Like I said, I don't hate myself that much. Other than that, I don't know. I think it's pretty much just been MMOs normally and the same stuff.
Yeah, I'm absolutely avoiding fucking Sekiro. For
This
a while.
coming from a guy who plays Dark Soul games. You're gonna avoid Sekiro.
Listen.
Listen.
I
No.
beat all of the Souls games except for Dark Souls 2 because it just bored the shit out of me. Okay, I'm
The thing
tired.
about
I'm tired of that genre. I don't need everything From Software makes to be, you know, turn my penis into an innie difficult. Okay. The thing is that I got into From Software back when. Do I need to give you a minute?
No,
it wasn't that funny. God damn.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good.
It was.
That was pretty good.
But like, here's my thing. I came up with From Software playing the games that they first got known for. King's Field, Shadow Tower,
Armored
Core,
Armored
that.
Core, yeah.
So for me, it was always the case of I loved From Software because From Software makes many different weird and interesting games that I enjoy playing. That while challenging, are often enjoyable in their way through their challenge, and just they've gotten to the point now where, and I don't blame them for wanting to get their money. Fuck you. People are willing to pay money for what you're doing. Get in there and get that shit. Absolutely. But I don't need everything to be Souls anymore. Like that's not a thing that I feel that company needs to be. And the problem is that's kind of what they are becoming. Like most of the games that they're making at this point are Souls games. I cannot honestly recall, like, they made like Another Centuries episode game in Japan and a Monster Hunter game that featured the Palicos, and I can't think of anything else that they made in Japan. And in the US, like, what was the last thing we saw from them that wasn't a Souls game? The Steel Battalion game for Kinect.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so it's like,
yeah.
FromSoft is very much at the point right now where they're getting their money and they deserve to, but I'm just tired of playing the things that they're making because they just keep making the same shit.
Hey Jan,
and it's it's great or whatever. I don't need to be involved in that. Like I don't need Dark Souls to be Madden.
JT. But hey Jan, E3 announcement, Dark Souls 4. Mark's gonna be like the first person in line.
Nope.
Yes.
No, I'm fucking done with that shit. I didn't buy the Monster Hunter that came out on the Switch, and I didn't do nearly as much with Monster Hunter World as I wanted to. I'm tired of it, dude. I'm just done with it. I played Assassin's Creed until it stopped being fun. I played Far Cry until it stopped being fun. This just isn't fucking fun anymore for me. And they don't have to. I don't have to be their target demographic. That's fine. Like it kind of sucks that I was one of the people that was supporting them back when they were just bankrolled by Age Tech and bringing their shit out. But it's fine. Like, I don't have to be their demographic. If they're happy making those games the way that they are, fucking good on them. They should absolutely be making the games that they want to make that are making them money. It's just, I want to see, stuff that is more interesting for me as a player.
Right.
And like, this isn't it.
No, it makes sense. I feel like the difficulty tends to spike a lot in Sekiro, also in like really inane places. It's like a weird thing if Bloodborne and Tenchu had a child, that's what Sekiro is. Like, that's the best analogy I can think of. And the thing about it is like the stealth elements of the game are so, I don't know. It feels like the game was built so that it could have stealth elements, but like the fact that it doesn't focus on that really kind of bothered me, because it's like that to me felt like it was going to be like key, like having the ability for the stealth elements to actually be a core portion of the actual playability of the game really is what kind of made me want to try to play it. But the more I saw it, the less that really was part of like the whole routine, I guess. And I'm just like, it's too fast for me. I mean, it can be, but at the same time, it's like I can't stealth bosses. Maybe I'm just really, really looking for the next Thief, and I'll never see it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's many different varieties of ways to play in the game. I'm sure that there's many different structures by which you can do what you would want to do in the same way that, the Souls games do it, in the same way that, like, Bloodborne did it, and so on. It's just, for me, it's just like, I 100%ed Dark Souls. I 100%ed Bloodborne. I almost 100% Dark Souls 3. I beat Demon Souls.
Mhm.
I don't want to do this anymore. I'm old and I'm tired, and I don't need the game, like kicking me in the ding dong as a thing. Like I play these games because I like the environments. I like the From Software storytelling aspect of things.
Mhm.
And if the challenge is there, great. But I don't need every game to be that. And
Right.
if that's what From Software wants to be, more power to them. They made their money. They can do whatever they want at this point. But like I said, it's just I don't need every game to be this now.
Okay.
I don't need every game to be this from Software. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe another Echo Knight is in the works at some point or another, or maybe an Armored Core is in the works, even though the dude that was like the lead on the Armored Core games left. It sounds like, maybe they've got something in the works that like speaks to me as the fan that's been supporting them, since day one.
Mhm.
And maybe it's not. Maybe they're just going to make Souls-like games forever. And if that's the case, I mean, that's fine. There's definitely a market for them, 2 to 3 million strong. Good for them. Let them have what they want. I'll be disappointed that I don't won't be seeing the games that from them that brought me to them as a developer. But it's like I just don't have the patience for that anymore.
Mhm.
I made my bones with those games. I proved that I have what it takes to do it. I just don't want to anymore.
Fair.
Okay,
I
well,
get it.
nobody cares what I'm playing, so let's move on. But
Definitely not DOA 6, that's for sure.
I play it here and there, and then I go into a fit of rage when something like an extended hitbox from an attack from half a screen away hits me for absolutely no reason, and then, drives me up a fucking wall. Anyway, I did pick up Sekiro, but I'll play it at some point. I also picked up Blaster Master 2. That looked really amazing. I was shocked that it was announced. It was released the same day as the Nintendo Direct, which was kind of cool, actually. I thought I had this really interesting idea for a topic, and this is mainly based on an experience I had. I took my kids to putt-putt golf recently. It's been a while since I took them, so I thought I'd go again. My youngest wanted to play the arcade games. This one putt-putt golf game, has usually changes the arcades games around every couple of years or so, but one game has remained there. It's probably been the one that's been in circulation the longest. The Simpsons arcade game.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and I think mainly because it's still in arcades in many places around the United States. I think it's only relevant still because the show's still going for 30 years strong, and it's actually made me consider the idea for this topic of like, what games have you seen that are probably still relevant in this day and age, whether it's because something has resurfaced or maybe something's still going on and is still strong to this day and age. Like, the DuckTales and DuckTales Remasters game are kind of pseudo-relevant, especially with the new DuckTales show, and the nods to both the past games, the past shows, including the Moon theme making an appearance multiple times in the latest episode.
Well, the fact that one of the characters actually sang a lyrical version of the actual Moon theme as well was actually kind of a nice nod to the original.
They created a lyrical version of the song, but they were also making her hum it every few seconds. It was kind of great.
The beat 'em up genre in general tends to be one of the most relevant genres just in general across all timelines. Doesn't matter. The beat 'em up genre has existed in such a fantastic way that as long as the company is willing to put in the time and the effort to actually make it feel like you're basically playing a beat 'em up version of the series that you really enjoy, like, like the Simpsons arcade game, like I played that when it first came out in arcades. Like that's
what,
how long that
1990?
game has been. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been out forever, and I enjoyed the hell out of it.
I still
But
enjoy the hell out of it.
I still enjoy the hell out of it. There are three genres that I'm always going to end up playing, regardless of whether or not the genre itself is a dying medium. That's beat 'em ups, fighting games, and shoot 'em ups. Period. Those are the games that have always stood the test of time. Whether it be something like G Darius or Gradius, or heaven forbid, I feel like hating myself and play a Toho game. To beat 'em up games like the fact that they're releasing Streets of Rage 4, like, are you serious? Do you know how excited I was when they announced that? Like, that game is amazing. Streets of Rage, Final Fight, literally any of the games that are on the Capcom beat 'em up bundle. By the way, if you haven't gotten a chance to get that, get it, because it's absolutely fantastic. It's like a throwback, but like still good. And it's silly because like all of these genres just have this way of just drawing you into wanting to play them and just continuing to play them, 30 years later. It's crazy. I don't know. It's just those are the three genres I feel like that will always stand the test of time. It kind of harkens to the idea of like, if you really think about it, those are the three genres that kind of really sort of blew gaming up in terms of like arcade gaming the most, I feel. And the reason why is because those are the games that you could have multiple players on at the same time. Fighting games is, 2 players. Then you've got like 4-player, like multiplayer beat 'em up games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then you got that massive 8-man X-Men cabinet from ages ago, if you remember that one. The idea is just like, I feel like something like that is really where gaming itself really kind of kicked more into the mainstream for people, especially in arcades. Quarter pumpers are always something that are going to get people to play more and more, purely just because of the fact that the style and the genre of the games are just built for that, and they translate just as well back at home as they do in the arcades. So it's like, why wouldn't you want to continue to play those kinds of games?
But what else outside of genres, which will stay relevant? What about specific games that are somehow relevant, far beyond their time of release? Like Simpsons.
I don't think a specific title needs to be the relevancy. I think that it's the genre that's the relevancy. Because I don't care what anyone says. Personally, I enjoyed the Scott Pilgrim beat 'em up game. A, the music was fantastic, and B, it's a genre that's still going to play to what the entirety of the comic itself was originally based around: fighting. And I feel like that's the genre. That's the idea behind why the genre is still so relevant, because it doesn't matter what you put on it. In certain aspects, there's a couple of beat 'em ups that are like, ugh, why is this still a thing? But like,
I mean, personally, the Scott Pilgrim game is the only part of the Scott Pilgrim franchise that I actually like. So,
see, the game itself plays best, and everyone understands that. But it's the genre that gets people to want to continue to play it. But I think it's not so much a matter of what you paste on the genre. It's the genre itself that stands the test of time. Like, you can go and play the Capcom beat 'em up, bundle. And the first game I went straight to was fucking Knights of the Round, because I love the hell out of that game. But it's the style, it's the play, it's how the game itself functions, and it feels the same, but it feels different depending on the version of the game that you're playing. Because there's always going to be that real specific mechanic. Like, back to The Simpsons. The fact that if you're playing with at least 2 or more players, you have the ability to do a combined attack where you can always take player 1 and player 2, and then they can grab hands and do a specific, AoE attack that hits everything on the screen. And then you can interchange that with all 4 of the characters that are in the game. Like, that was unheard of back then.
Or you can do co-op interactions, like picking up a car and throwing it at people.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So the idea is that the gimmicks within the game itself always change based on what you're playing, but the concept and the playability of those games is fantastic and will never change because it's just that good. And I think a lot of it has to just sort of play back to the genre itself, build itself into that. So when I actually got approached recently, like within the last 6 months or so, to help sort of QA test to beat 'em up. And so when I started in on it, and they're not very far, and they're only a couple of levels into it, but they wanted some real outside playtest question, Q&A on it. And the very first thing I noticed was there was a lack of very fundamental, very common, very specific beat 'em up, mechanics that weren't in this game. And when I asked the devs about it, they were like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, have you ever played a beat 'em up before? And they're like, no, not really. We just figured that this was a good genre because we see that it gets money. And I'm like,
Okay.
okay, so here's what I suggest. And I gave them a huge list. It's probably like 8 or 9 different things. But the specific ones were like, if I hit both my attack and my jump buttons, I do an AoE spin that may eat a little bit of my life, but it knocks all the enemies off of me. Or, and then I gave them all these little subtle things. But if you think about what a beat 'em up really is, they exist in some form or fashion, regardless of the version of the game that you're playing. And they're like, oh, we never thought of any of that before. So I gave them a list of like the top 10 beat 'em up games of my choice. And I said, these are the top 10 beat 'em ups. Before you guys make any sort of additional changes, additions, or subtractions from this game right now, go play these games. Go into your office, grab copies of them, and play them. You can get them on MAME, you can buy them like Capcom Beat 'em Up Bundle, you can play them on these. Go and play these games before you continue to make this game. They did. They came back and they said, thank you. Because we've played these games, we have a much deeper understanding about what the genre is, and we know what we need to do to make those changes. 6 weeks later, they sent me another advanced copy of the game so that I can continue to try it out. They had not only implemented a lot of the stuff that I had suggested, but they had also started taking additional things like there was the concept of like later on in the genre's lifespan where you have the ability to go into like a shop and spend your points, like your high score points, to actually gain like upgrades for your abilities and stuff like that, because it's a medieval style setting. And I'm like, yes, thank you. This is so much better because I can learn as I level or play a game. But the thing is that if I can earn those things, it makes me want to earn more points, go through the level and trying to actually compete with the other players on my team versus just everyone's co-oping and everyone gets the same stuff. It's like, oh, okay, that can get a little tedious and boring. But after a while, you get to that point where it's like, ooh, this is really fun. And you're just like, okay, yeah, that was a good choice. So yeah, I mean, the genre stands the test because it's so universal and because it has this concept of this is sort of where things work and where things don't work. It really doesn't matter what you put on the front of it. It's just a matter of as long as you understand the genre, it's going to stand the test of time.
Mark, anything to add? Although I think she hit it on the head.
Yeah, I mean, it's genres can go in and out of style like that. That happens all the time. I never, fighting games have always kind of sort of fluctuated back and forth, but have always been around to a certain extent because of the more competitive nature. But like beat 'em ups have gone deeply out of style and then come back. Shooters, like side-scrolling shooters, I don't necessarily think were ever really huge, but have still always had a place. Adventure games have kind of, fluctuated in and out and so on and so forth. I would say by and large, so long as a developer holds to the basic tenets of this kind of what makes a genre great, you're always going to end up with something that's enjoyable and fun and interesting.
Mm-hmm. And while it may not have a ton of replayability, at least you know that you enjoyed it when you did play it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can always go back to it because it's like it's kind of like your favorite pair of socks. You don't want to wear them all the time, but you always put them back on eventually because they're comfortable and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're just tuning in, welcome to GVN Live. I'm Hubs. That's Jan. That's Mark.
Yeah, he's Hubs and we're not.
And you're happy about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I have hair. I have hair.
Oh. Well, there's the hair joke. All right.
I mean, I have a lot of hair.
Yeah, here.
I feel like in the grand scheme of things, God got to the hair joke before I did.
I mean, I shave my head
Speaking of
maybe every
jokes.
4 or 5 months. I shave my head. I don't get where the joke's coming from, but sure, sure. I'll let you have it, Mark. Sure, it makes you happy. But now that we're warmed up after that nice little quick conversation and intro to the show, let us begin. So, a few things have happened just in the past week. One of which we'll be talking about in the middle of the show, which just happened actually kind of in the past couple of days. But the first big one happened last week, which was during the GDC, and the big company that came out was Google, and everyone was like, oh, here comes a new Sega console, because people are misinterpreting, for whatever reason, Sega was involved in the development of a console from Google. Google comes out, bores the hell out of everybody. Hey, we're going to do a streaming gaming service. The Stadia. Yay. To be truthfully honest, I believe my exact words were, yay, another streaming service. It's like this never worked out well before, right on live? To be perfectly honest, of course, internet infrastructure and data transfers and all that stuff have improved a lot in the last 5 or 6 years since OnLive, graced us with their presence. So, in theory, I guess you could say Google might be in place for a much better experience, although I have absolutely no faith whatsoever in cloud gaming whatsoever as a service. Microsoft has an interesting idea, and they're slowly implementing it as cloud computing, where they use cloud computing to assist with, say, major things going on in a game, like watching a building collapse. Like, if you remember the demo from E3 a couple years ago, they showed a building collapsing, and the debris and all that stuff is being calculated by a computer off at a server somewhere in a warehouse. Mm-hmm. Which I'm interested in something like that. Cloud gaming services, no, I'm not interested, because there's too many variables to just ruin the experience. Now, if it's a subscription service where you are really just paying $15-20 a month to play a shitload of games, I mean, that makes it a bit more viable, kind of like a Netflix. But if you're actually subscribing to this, paying money monthly, and then you're paying $50-60 for a game to play it on their streaming service, well, I honestly think you're just getting fucked in the ass with that lube. With a giant dragon dildo. So
I think the biggest issue here is more of a matter of the fact that there are limitations to the style of how something like this can actually function. Mm-hmm. And it's region-based. And the problem with that is that certain areas of the world have better internet where other areas don't. However, that isn't the core issue. The core issue is how the games are presented. If it's like OnLive and everything is stored server-side, and we have to log into the internet, log into a console or a box or whatever it is to get into a website that's going to give me access to these games, and I play it on their servers, there's a lot of different things that are going to happen here. The very first thing is that I'm going to have connectivity lag. There's a ping that's involved with this, and that ping is going to be high depending on where these games are hosted. So unless I've got multiple servers that I can connect to across the globe, if somebody in Maine wants to play on fiber, that's great. They still have to connect to a server in San Francisco, which is the other side of the country. That's a huge distance. No matter what kind of internet you've got, you're going to have lag. Mm-hmm. So unless there are server hubs across not just America, but the world for this kind of conceptual idea, it's going to fail right out of the gate. The second issue is that there's going to be an issue with how something like this is going to connect to the box, and how the input from this to your screen, based on the amount of information and the informational hops that are going to have to happen from your system to the server, from the server back to your system, and then show you what you're actually wanting to look on the screen. Nothing like that is going to function right, regardless of how fast the hardware and the technology is. Because if I've got to make 29 jumps to go from my controller through that box to the server and then back just to, turn right on the screen, and that takes a second or two. That's the difference between like dying 20 times and actually completing a level, depending on the type of game that you're playing. I'm not in for that.
Yeah. I actually experienced only one game that was trying to be based off the cloud, and that was Phantasy Star Online 2 for the Switch. The servers are in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
My friend in San Francisco can barely get a playable signal. I get booted off within 2 minutes of trying to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and we know Sega's never gonna fucking bring the game stateside. Let's just accept it now.
I wouldn't say that now.
No.
6 weeks ago, I would have said yes.
No, don't do this to me.
That.
Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me.
We'll touch on that.
Didn't they
Stop.
just announce a new Sakura Wars?
They did.
Yes.
But that whole Sega, the thing that Sega sent out recently, they sent out an email to a bunch of Sega players, surveying about a bunch of different franchises and which franchises people want to see. So far as I can tell, there's a primary reason why a lot of people are like, hey, Virtua Fighter's on this. That's great. So was literally both Phantasy Star and Phantasy Star Online. So Sega's actually paying attention to what people in America are actually wanting to do. Because
this is the standard survey they've been pushing out every 2 years for the past 6 years. Only with the last survey they did we actually finally see some real change with the announcement of the release of the Shenmue 1 and 2 HD release and a couple other things, including this the last Sonic 2D Sonic game, Sonic Mania.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's small changes, but changes in the right direction. I'm not expecting to see a retro style, well, not retro style, but like a classic Phantasy Star Online or Phantasy Star game, or we're getting a Streets of Rage 4, but I'm not expecting to see a Skies Over Arcadia 2, even though I told them that's what I want.
The thing about the survey was, one, it was only released to American or U.S. or North American. So it was Canada, U.S., Mexico region people. The other issue is that if you actually think about it, this is what's really interesting. If you actually went through that survey and picked all of the games that were on that list, only 6 of those games actually had follow-up questions. Mm-hmm. One of them was Phantasy Star, the other one was PSO.
And anyway, yeah, I know. But to bring it back home to talk about the Stadia and cloud computing and all that stuff.
Cloud computing is a good concept. Cloud gaming is not a good concept. And the reason why cloud computing works is because it's a hosted environment. Mm-hmm. Content is grabbed from that environment and put onto a local device. PS Now, good concept. Works functionally, has decent connectivity, and as long as you continue to pay the baseline subscription fee, the games themselves are free. You simply just download them, store them locally, and play them. This is what standard cloud computing is. This is what cloud gaming is most likely going to continue to be for at least another 3 to 5 years. The reason I say that is because hosting data centers in a local state or in a local area around you that can host X amount of people over a given period of time is not functionally the best way of doing it. Look at MMOs in general. Most of the data is stored on your computer or on your console. And that data is loaded, and then that information from the loaded data is then sent to the server via the cloud in order for that communication to happen. But there's still local data stored on your system. OnLive didn't have a good concept originally because OnLive tried to do everything through one central server, which is why it failed. Where I think Google has a bone is purely just because it's Google. Here's the problem. No China. Just not going to happen. That's a huge market they're going to miss out on. Mm-hmm. Asia as a whole got 3 regions, maybe, that you could probably host it in. Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan. Because you can't get China. China's completely out. You're going to have a problem with a lot of the Mediterranean countries as well because of content, and you're going to have problems with Australia because Australia
and South America because I don't
South
think they can afford it.
Wow, that's racist.
A little bit.
Not racist. It's
Yeah,
an
that's a little
economical thing because the country
that
is.
mean that you can't afford it. There are still plenty of rich people who play video games in South America. Trust me.
If a Sega Master System is still costing $300 over there, and you think
People like their Master System. That doesn't have anything to do with it.
exactly the
Master System
baseline
was
is like,
popular in that region.
oh yeah, absolutely. But the primary issue here isn't so much how the games are going to get to you. It's a matter of where the games are going to be stored in order for you to be able to play them. And that's the fundamental thing that I think Google has a leg up on literally everyone else, because they have the bankroll to put those servers where they're going to function and where people are going to be able to grab the games and play them on a regular basis with less conceptual issue and more of a how many people are trying to play the newest release. Is that the reason why the game is lagging?
Okay, now there was an article that came out either yesterday or this morning. I just know I was reading it this morning from PC Gamer. They've released at least a couple of articles since the reveal of the Stadia, and the latest one was a guy who tested it out, and he tried out all the other games like Assassin's Creed and said, "Oh yeah, it played fine, it looked great." Then he played Doom, which he thought would be the most intensive in terms of testing the game delay and all that stuff. And he said, yeah, I died a lot because I just didn't have the reaction time. And that is a big problem. So you're definitely not going to see any kind of competitive gaming being done with the Stadia, in my personal opinion.
Again, it's too early to say. And the reason I say that is because this is a beta test. These are like alphas even, where you're getting a small subsection of people, maybe 15 to 20 people who are getting on a small local server, but these people are dotted across not only the United States, but they're up in Canada, and there's a couple of people over in Europe. They're only connecting to one server, and they're all trying to play the same games. They've got like 4 games on the alpha, right? Everyone's trying to play the same games. This is the same issue that happens when big multiplayer games, like, say, for instance, Fallout 76, Final Fantasy 14, World of Warcraft. These kind of games have the same basic concept. You have hundreds of thousands of people pinging the same server for the same content at the same time. You have to have the bandwidth, you have to have the ability, and you have to have the content available. But remember, all of these other games also have local content stored on a device. These guys are playing purely streamed games. All of the content is still server-side, which means none of the extra load work to help reduce that lag exists yet. So who's to say that there isn't going to be some sort of a flash drive inside of this box that's going to give them the ability to basically say, hey, here, I'm going to preload certain parts of the game onto this flash memory so that it helps reduce the load bearing of the actual streaming of the game. Well, let's say instead of 95% of the game is actually being streamed, you're actually only streaming about 50 to 60% of the game. That not only helps increase the speed, but it also helps increase the amount of input and output that you're actually getting from your controller.
But there's a concept that
server.
I think doesn't work there, because you're saying have a flash drive, let's say, in a device for, like, let's say, a stream box.
Google Stadia isn't aiming to do that. They want it to be able to be playable on any type of a device. So
I know
that doesn't work. The moment you bring it to your tablet, like that's not a conversation that we're having anymore. Like, you can't do that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because you can't really download the game onto your tablet. You can't really, or portions of the game onto the tablet. You can't do it onto your phone. PC would be the only viable market for it to be able to work like that.
Not necessarily. Phones have built-in memory. Tablets have built-in memory. I mean, everything. But the thing is that it also depends on your connection.
Where the fuck did 53 viewers come from?
That's a good question. But anyway,
shit. Thank you, whoever did that. You're awesome.
But, like, okay,
all devices have built-in memory. However, here's the issue. The issue stems from connectivity. If you're trying to do something like this, like Stadia is, on a phone or on a tablet, or heaven forbid, a Switch, these devices have one of two ways of connecting. You're either connecting on a cellular OTA network, or you're connecting on a Wi-Fi connection. On a Wi-Fi connection, you're using home terrestrial internet, which means speed. You've got the ability to do it. if you're on a Wi-Fi, if you're not on Wi-Fi, if you're trying to do something like this on 4G LTE, good luck. That connectivity is going to be so spotty that there's no way you're going to have the same connectivity or the same experience that you're going to have on something that's physically connected, like a laptop or a desktop or even a gaming console. It's just not physically possible.
Okay, Jan, I love you, but shut up for a second.
So
I want to take a moment to just go through like the tech corner, like because what I do is sort of like adjacent to this shit. So I have a lot of questions that nobody's really asking, and I think people need to. Okay. Google themselves has said at this point, specification-wise, that in order to play these games at 1080p, which is the highest they support right now, we're not talking about 4K or 8K down the line, just 1080p. You're talking 25 megabytes per second to get 1080p at 60 frames per second. Which, okay, most people on their home internet have 25 megabytes per second download.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, that's great. That says that you can do this sort of thing. But Google is not a company that makes things to occupy a niche. Google is not a thing that's going to be content having 1 million users. They want the PlayStation 2 era 140 million users. They want the Wii 70 million users. Mm-hmm. They're not going to want a 10 million person installed user base because here's the thing, nobody's going to make shit for your platform if you don't have that magical 10 million number.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to desperately need exclusives in order to make this something people are going to want to pay money for.
Right.
So, okay, right off the bat, we're talking, you need to have an internet connectivity that can handle a minimum 25 megabytes per second download. Okay, here's the thing. Most people have that in some level or another. Like I have like 100 megabytes download. A lot of people in the area have a lot of have like high download speeds, but the US in particular is spotty as hell as it relates to the quality of its internet access.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a couple people who are like, well, not everything has to be for you. And I'm like, it's Google. Who the fuck do you think Google is making shit for?
Absolutely.
Alexa is literally a consumer product. It is a consumer grade product. Google wants everyone to buy this shit. That is yes, this has to be for me because Google wants me to buy it. Google wants everyone to buy it. So right off the bat, you are eliminating a certain amount of your potential customers just by the fact that they don't have 25 megabytes download speed. Then on top of that, you have to consider the fact that download speeds fluctuate. So even if you have 25, you probably want closer to 40 or 50.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the next question that I would have there is, in what way is traffic being fired at me by Google? Now, there are two types of connections that you can use without getting into a lot of the really involved specifics. The most common protocols that are used are TCP and UDP. Mm-hmm. The major reason why this matters is TCP verifies its connection from end to end to make sure that the connection is stable, that the information is being gotten, and that the connection window is consistent with what the end user can handle. UDP just throws fucking packets in the direction, doesn't give a shit if they get there or how fast they get there or in what order they get there. Streaming video is done in UDP. Most of your other connections that you do on the internet are in TCP, but streaming video is done in UDP, and there's a reason for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if any type of streaming service attempted to use TCP to verify the contents of the connection, it would massively bog down every single connection they performed. So when you're talking about every other type of connection, your bank, you log into your bank, you log into the Amazon website, that's all TCP. It has a three-stage handshake where both sides verify that the transaction is able to be completed, they do their business, and then they close the connection. So everything is verified because it needs to be. With streaming video, it doesn't give a shit if a packet gets dropped. It just throws that shit in the direction that it's going. And if it drops a packet, oh fucking well, the connection is dropped, or maybe there's some packet loss, and you move on with your day. When you are talking about actually streaming a video game, you can't really rely on UDP for that kind of connectivity, because if packets are dropped, that could mean input delay. That could mean an input is completely lost. And that's going to be something where if it happens even 2 or 3 times during a single play session, people aren't going to want to come back to that.
Mm-mm.
You are going to need this to probably either be on some type of a dedicated connection, which is absolutely not something Google can do. You can't just pray to God that everybody's using Google Fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's going to have to be done via TCP. And I don't see them doing that via TCP. So I see this very much being a thing where there's going to be people who have situations where a packet is dropped and they're like, fuck, I just died to this boss because I pushed a button and it didn't register it, because not all of the stuff being fired back and forth was verified and Google missed something. But okay. So connectivity is whatever. All right, here's my next question. They're basically implying that every single time you're doing something with this, they're spinning up a VM that is capable of playing this particular thing. And these now, virtual machines and cloud computing are great because this is basically what's going to be called platform as a service, where you are essentially renting the platform and getting whatever out of it that you can get.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. In cloud computing, generally speaking, when a virtual machine is spun up, the platform is generally dedicated to be a certain specific way to be able to perform a certain specific functionality. You, as part of whatever rental contract you have, you say, I need to be able to do this, 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 and this. You're talking about 5-10 million people being able to spin up something that's going to be running like the equivalent of high-tier Photoshop. And all of them are going to be able to need to do that, potentially at the highest graphical settings possible. You are going to need a lot of dedicated data centers, like at least one in all of your major states, that are capable of handling shitloads of VMs running simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is going to be one of the most murderous server farms in existence, and this is just for the machines that are spinning up the VMs for people to play these. And then on top of that, okay, every single VM has to be able to grab the data for the games that exist, right? So how does this work? Does every single user have a dedicated VM that exists for them in perpetuity until they stop using the Stadia service? Because that's a waste of resources. Like that defeats the whole purpose of having VMs. You can create all of these machines virtually, but if you're just going to keep them spun up forever and just sitting there on the cloud, that's a waste of your resources. You're probably not going to do that, right? Okay.
Exactly.
So when you go to spin up a VM, they're saying, oh, well, you'll be able to instantly jump in and boot up the game. I don't think that's true, because you're going to be spinning up a VM every single time that is either going to have accessible to it every single game that is available on the Stadia service, or at least the games from your profile. There's going to be delays while this thing spins up a VM for you, puts together your particular library, and then deploys it out to you. And again, if they're going to keep all of these VMs active, like, I know that storage isn't really a big issue right now because it's so cheap to have, but like you saw the pictures of the server racks that they were showing at that Stadia presentation. Okay, if you're storing, every single movie that was ever made, like Netflix might do as an example, that's, a tall order. But this is storing every single possible game that might ever be made, and storing every single potential VM that might be in existence for every single customer. It's a fucking nightmare from a logistical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then on top of that, we're talking about, all right, Google has made it plain that what you are going to do when you're using the service is you're going to buy the game. You're going to have to pay money for that game. Okay, they can't do an Origin-style service where you sign up for X amount of dollars a month and you're just given all of these free games. I mean, maybe they can for some games, once they've achieved some type of deal with like smaller developers, but you're generally not going to see a situation where brand new games are going to be incorporated into this plan. Like, you're going to be buying these games for whatever amount of money.
Right.
Chances are good it's probably going to be the same $60 that you're paying for everybody else. But here's the thing. Buying these games does not pay the bills. It does not pay the bills required to run an entire server farm. It does not pay the bills required to spin up and down a VM, which means that there's almost certainly going to be a membership fee associated. Now, we already have people who are balking at the idea of a membership fee for online play. You're talking about a membership fee just to get entry in the first place. And while there may be scenarios where you get a free game and you get a free game and everybody gets a free game for being a part of the service, much like an Xbox Live or a PSN, you're still being asked to spend $60 of your money, probably, to buy these games. You don't own a console. You don't own a game. All you have is this nebulous data that can be accessed from any of your devices, and this controller that only works with this service. You're very much asking players to go to the idea of, I have nothing now. Like, I just have a controller that says that I own this. And then that's really the most concerning part of all of this is the digital marketplace has caught on much better on the PC than it has on the console, because the digital marketplace generally allows consumers the ability to guarantee that they have access to their content, with notable exceptions. Like, if you have a Steam game, you can back it up and like maybe it'll work. It may still try to call home, but if you buy your game from anywhere else, Humble Bundle, GOG, whatever, DRM free. You have that installer. You have that game. If you buy a game on the Xbox store or on PSN, like, you don't own that game. If that game is delisted in 6 months, fuck you. You don't own that anymore. I don't
unless
own
you keep it
Double
on your
Dragon
console.
Even then, like, if you lose it for some reason, like your console gets reformatted or something like that, fuck you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't have the Xbox Live version of Double Dragon anymore.
I still have the original Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 on my Xbox 360. It was delisted years ago, and I still have it on there.
Yeah, okay. You still have that. Even so, that's perfect. Actually, you still have those so long as they are physically installed, right?
Yes.
Right.
If you buy a game from Stadia and it gets delisted, you don't have that because you don't have a machine where that's installed. If a game is to be delisted, you don't have a way of getting a copy of that permanently because it's not accessible to you on your platform. You don't have a way of being able to install that somewhere so you can still continue to play that even after it's been delisted. Like, if they just if Google gets into a fight with one of their developers and the games are just delisted from their service, it's fucking gone. It's just gone. You threw $60 into the street. You have no way of guaranteeing that you still have access to that game in a year. And if the Stadia service, goes away, there will probably be some type of a thing that happens with, like the various shops that exist for Sony and for Microsoft, where it's like, okay, we don't have any way of verifying this anymore, but whatever, you have it installed. For as long as you have it installed, you still have this. And if you're just given a signal that says there's no way to check, but it's alive. If Google just completely goes out of the Stadia business, they're not going to keep those fucking servers running.
No.
If this is not a successful venture in 5 to 10 years, and it goes the way of the Google Glass or any one of the number of other failed attempts that they've made, because Google is absolutely fine with throwing away stuff that doesn't work the way that they wanted it to. Great. You spent hundreds of dollars on games to build up a library of stuff that's just in the ether, and it's just gone. And I mean, sure, you don't have to buy a $300 to $500 console and have it in your home doing all of this stuff. But here's the thing. The Stadia the Stadia is just a service for playing these games. It just exists as a service. This console that you get, at the very least, allows you, if you so desire, the ability to physically own the things associated with it and can perform additional functions that make it at least somewhat viable to have this physical device in your house.
Mhm.
You know, it can hook up into your home theater system, so you can get all of this stuff going.
Right.
You can run Blu-ray movies from it in most cases. You can download apps for that, so it can act as this, that, and the other thing. Now, the Google service can work with the Google, whatever their particular thumb drive thing is called.
Google
I don't
Drive.
remember the name. No, the thing that they plug into the TV, like a Roku or whatever.
Oh, the Chromecast.
Thank you.
Chromecast, yeah.
It works with the Chromecast. Yeah. Okay, what if I don't have a fucking Chromecast? I have a Roku, you know? But, like, what if I have a Fire Stick? What if I have a Roku? What if I don't have a Chromecast? Now I gotta go out and buy a fucking Chromecast on top of everything else. It's
like $50.
still.
Yeah.
There's still an investment
Another
involved in
investment
that.
in something
It
like
is.
that you really don't need.
Yeah,
to
like
function
what if I
effectively.
bought a 4K TV that has its own smart stuff built into it, and it's not Chromecast? You know, this is another expense I have to use for this. So you're asking the consumer to spend $60 per game because, let's be honest, they're not going to bring the fucking price down. They never bring the fucking price down. That's just not how that happens. So you're going to be paying $60 a game, whatever amount of money, probably $15 to $20 a month for a subscription service, just to keep your shit active. If I had to venture a guess, you know. And then on top of that, you're going to have to buy the controller that they have set up for it, and you're going to have to buy the whatever. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous and silly.
Hey, Jan, you should clean up your room.
Yeah, it's clean. That's my hoodies. Like, what are you worried about?
By the way, if you're tuning in, everybody, hi, welcome to GVN Live. I'm Fight Club Hubs. This is Jan. That is Mark. The enigma that is just burning in hell right there.
You're the one that came up with the fire background.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
But
You did.
I
You
mean,
have to.
all you're doing is standing there giving us the bird and giving us pucker lips every now and then.
Well, that is what it is.
Pucker mask.
Yeah,
Thank
pucker
you.
Pucker mask
Anyway,
lips.
Look, I'm not doing duck face. Fuck you.
Yeah,
But,
fuck you too.
But yeah, like at the end of the day, it's I have a lot of technical and financial concerns with the Stadia that Google is nowhere near answering. And the thing is, it's not in their best interest to answer a lot of those questions. They're going to answer the questions that, you know, they have to answer in order to convince people to pay money for stuff. They're gonna be like, okay, here's the monthly amount, here's what the games are going to cost, here's what the controller's going to cost, et cetera, so on. They're going to answer that stuff. Like, they're not going to answer the question of, you know, what happens, like, how are you using 2CP or UDP, and if you're using UDP, what happens if, like, some packets are dropped and an entire input wasn't registered, and, oh, I died. Or here's a different question. Okay, if I'm home and I'm using my PlayStation 4 and I'm playing a single-player game and my power goes out, right? I could lose my connection to the game. I could lose whatever progress I've made. Sure. But if I'm running some type of a power brick, which a lot of people do at this point, that gives me enough time to get to a save point, power down, do whatever. Here's the thing. What happens if you're on Stadia and that happens? Like, if I'm playing Dark Souls on Stadia and my power goes out, does the Stadia stay active long enough for me to get fucking completely bodied because it's no longer detecting a connection for me, but it doesn't know what I'm doing? Is it pausing the game at that point? How long does it pause it for? You know, if the power goes out for like a couple of minutes and I come back, is my virtual machine session completely gone? Does it stay active for a period of time? How long does it stay active for?
Right.
What will happen if I'm playing a game that doesn't allow for pausing functions? Like, because, if you're playing a game that allows for pausing, presumably you could say the moment that you lose connection and it knows that you've lost connection, it'll pause the game and wait for you to come back.
Yeah, like
What
if
if
a
you're playing
wireless
a game that
controller
doesn't
dies.
pause? Yeah, what happens if you're playing a game that doesn't allow for pausing? Because if your wireless controller dies in Dark Souls, I'll tell you exactly what happens. You fucking die. But like, you're talking about a scenario where this could entirely not be in my control. I could lose internet connectivity temporarily. Like, somebody could be driving down the street and like run into something and fuck, my power's gone. Somebody could be driving down the street and run into something, fuck, my internet's gone. And I may be able to resolve these issues at home by running a power brick that keeps my console active long enough for me to get to a save point and then turn it off, or by just not playing a game where I'm online all the time. But if this is like something where I'm connected to the internet all the time in order to be able to access this stuff, I'm shot. And I mean, like, here's a different question: what if the Google Stadia services are offline for some reason, or what if my internet is down for some reason? With the PlayStation, with the Xbox, I can still play these games. There's many games that I can play that are offline. With Google, being online is literally the only way you can play this game. What if they have to bring this shit down for maintenance for a period of 6 hours, which they do with PSN and Xbox periodically? That's just 6 hours you can't play fucking games at all now.
Yep.
It's I don't think it's the worst idea ever. I don't think that they shouldn't do it. I have a lot of questions that I do not think will ever be reasonably answered by Google until the actual service comes to fruition and is in our house. I do not think this is going to be a successful plan, not because I don't think Google is prepared, but because I just don't think that at this stage of our societal technological advancement, it's feasible. It's not the worst idea in the world, but it's not. I do not think that we exist in a world where this is going to be a success. This is going to be another 3D TV or a Google Glass or a Google Plus or whatever, where they're going to run it for a few years and it's going to be fine, and then that's it.
Yeah. Another gimmick in a long line of gimmicks that probably just shouldn't exist.
So let's place some wagers here. I give Google Glass at least 5 to 6 years. Or not Google Glass, Google Stadia. Why'd you have to put that back in my mind, Mark?
Because it's a thing they failed at.
Yeah.
So I give them 5 to 6 years. Jan, what do you think? I mean, they have a lot of money. They have Microsoft money, probably more, and they can keep pumping crap into it.
You can't quantify that.
Yeah, they got that. They got that Olive Garden fuck money right there. They do.
Got that Robert Kraft money.
I look at it. You can't quantify how long something like this is going to last. At best, maybe 3 years tops. And the only reason I'm saying that is purely just because of the reasons that Mark gave. There's so many different possibilities of just catastrophic failure for something like this to happen that it's just like, why would anyone bother? The two things that I'm worried about the most that Mark touched on is that there isn't going to be any local way of playing this game and what happens when the servers go down. And the other issue is conceptually what happens when a game is delisted. I've spent hundreds of my real dollars to own these games in a conceptual, digital environment, and I have no access to them anymore because I don't have it stored on a physical device because it's all server side. So that's again, that really just boils down to PS Now works better. We should just keep doing that. And I don't know why people think that purely streaming services are ever going to functionally be the way to go, because we don't live in that future, especially not in the United States. If you're in Asia or if you're in Europe, you probably live in that world. We don't live in that world in the United States because our internet's shit compared to 99% of the rest of the world. And we aren't going to see people who live out in the middle of nowhere who buy consoles that like to play these games because that's the only way they can do it. versus somebody like myself who's got a gigabit connection who could probably pull something like this off. But again, I wouldn't want to spend my money on something like that because I don't own a physical copy of it. It's asinine is what it is, and I don't understand why it continues to be something that people want or think they want, because it's not, and you're marketing it wrong.
I do definitely know people who want to minimize the amount of physical stuff they have in their house, and who look at the idea of digital game ownership as a way of doing that. I would say, based on the way Google has responded to all of their other projects at this point, I'd give them 10 years. Because they didn't shut down Google Plus until it was basically absolutely positive that there was nothing they could do with it. There was no way they could rehab it, and they were done with it. And the amount of money that they threw into that, the amount of development that they threw into that, they were dedicated. They have more money than God at this point to do with whatever they want, and they have the ability to be as dedicated about this as they want to be. If they are passionate about this project, if it makes it out of the prototyping stage, I'm giving them 10 years. Like, if we see a release to the consumer, they're going to keep trying to get it over. I see no reason it won't last a decade or close to it. Now, it's possible it may not make it out of the prototype stage because they may ultimately see so many issues with their, their alphas and their betas and whatnot that they might just be like, we're going to, sit on this for a while and see where we can take it. But if it gets to a point where it's a consumer branded product, 10 years. Easy. Because they can afford it, and they're gonna want to try and make it a thing, I think.
Okay. So I really think that's all we could say about that. I mean, Jesus Christ, that 15-minute rant from you, Mark, was more than just the information we needed for this topic alone. I don't think there was anything I could have added, even though I spoke my mind at the beginning of this segment.
Listen, this is what I do for a living. This is what I do for a living.
I know. So let's go on to we got a couple more topics, so we'll go to the lighter one real quick and then end the night with probably Mark's favorite segment. We're going to talk about Sony and Microsoft now following suit in Nintendo's footsteps with their own forms of a direct. Sony apparently unveiled theirs yesterday. I forget what it was called, but from the consensus, what?
State of Play.
State of Play, and the consensus was that it sucked.
Other than the brand new Mortal Kombat story trailer they had at the very end of it, 90% of it was all PSVR stuff.
And
they had a little bit more on another zombie apocalypse game that probably should have come out about 2 years ago when they initially announced it, and does not look any better or worse than it did originally when it first was announced. And that was pretty much it. It was garbage. It was about 15 minutes of waiting for Mortal Kombat.
And
are you talking about Days Gone?
Days Gone.
Fuck, I forgot that was coming out.
Yep,
I legitimately forgot that was a thing that existed until you mentioned it, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that trailer from 2 years ago.
Yeah,
what happened to that game? Oh, it's coming out in like 3 weeks.
Yep.
Shit. Okay.
I still don't care.
But Microsoft's ID at Xbox Game Case or Game Showcase, whatever, happened today, and I watched the video of it, and it was about a 12-13 minute video, and I was fine with it, although there was a segment in there where they took way too long talking about one game, which I didn't care for, which was some drinking game. It's an adventure game where you're supposed to try two people go to hell. What was it called? After Party. And to get out of hell, you have to drink the devil under the table.
Right on.
Okay, Mark is already on board. So
if you like booze, that's a thing for you.
I'm like, I don't drink, but if it's like digital drinking, sure, whatever. I can't play poker, but I would play Night at the Armor. There's those poker night games
those were actually
Valve
really
made.
Good, though.
Yeah, but
I did enjoy those.
The consensus was they showed off a lot of really interesting, unique games, kind of like what Nintendo did with their indie showcase last week. And well,
see,
is this going to be a more common thing we see now? Are we going to see like other companies like Ubisoft and EA come out and do their own directs now that Nintendo's been having so much success with doing their directs for the last 5 years?
No. And I'll tell you why. The big three are going to showcase the games for them. Period. Like, that's just where the money is going to be. And the issue is with this is really more about the fact that the only reason that both Sony and Microsoft did indie games is because Nintendo did indie games. And it's like, really, guys?
It's not even just that. It's not even just that. We're kind of also in the position where they don't necessarily have enough games to showcase that would fill in a direct like this without going in that direction. And Nintendo's in the same boat. They're starting to lean on the indie games just because it's a constant source of, here's this thing that's coming out. You know, it may not be the biggest project, but it's a project. It's something that we can try and sell you with. You guys like stuff, right? Here's stuff.
I think that I mean, if I'm gonna rank the three, Nintendo definitely was the better of the three. PlayStation was just boring, and Xbox is Xbox. They're all games only on Xbox. They're not releasing them on Windows. They're not trying to make any sort of name for themselves, even though they're all like, hey, we're putting Xbox Live on everything, you know, which would be a perfect time to basically say, oh, by the way, all of these games that you get with Games Pass are all playable on PC as well. That's the thing.
Cuphead's coming to the Switch.
Ooh, with a physical release. Yeah, nobody cares. It's Cuphead. It's been out for like 2 years. If you haven't already played it by now and you want to play it on your Switch, good for you. But if you haven't already played Cuphead at this point, you're kind of behind the times. And there's other games that are actually better right now that are probably going to get more play than, say, something like, oh, look, we're rehashing Cuphead with nothing new. Oh,
yeah,
I'd also like to point out that the Cuphead by this point, on Switch, you're not getting the expansion content. Just letting you know.
If you haven't played Cuphead at this point, like if you really want to play Cuphead portably, like if that's what you're getting it for, and let's be clear, that's pretty much the reason you're doing it. If you're buying it for Switch, you know, okay, that's completely reasonable. But if you haven't bought Cuphead by this point, you don't want to. You know, I mean, I don't own Cuphead. My life is in no way measurably poorer for this fact, and them having released it on the Switch is not going to make me go, you know what? Maybe I need to give that one a try. No.
But you also have to remember, for the time it was out, it's only been on Xbox and PC, and the people who didn't buy it either don't own an Xbox or never knew that there was a PC version.
It was pretty well known that there was a PC version of it, but I mean, you know, okay, fair enough.
Then it didn't even see it saw most of its popularity hit from when it actually hit PS4. So it's like, honestly, it was either the PC or the PS4 people that really made Cuphead as popular as it was, because that was the versions that people were playing.
It didn't come out on PS4.
Was it not on PS4?
Nope.
I thought it was on PS4.
It was published on Microsoft on the Xbox One and PC.
Then yeah, it's just the PC version. If you haven't gotten a chance to actually play it, you've probably played it on Steam, because that's the version of the game that everyone played it on, because that was the one that was easily accessible for 90% of people that play the game. If you're looking to play Cuphead on Steam, great. If you're looking to, you know, because you've probably already done it a couple of times. If you're looking to get it on the Switch, like Mark said, great. You're getting it because you want to play it on the go. But like I said, you're not getting the additional expansion content that's been out for a few months now for it as well. But you're also, you know, whatever, it's Cuphead. Who cares?
Like, I mean, like if you're opposed to the idea of buying stuff on PC or on the Xbox, like if your thing is Nintendo or nothing, like, okay, I guess, you know, more power to you. Like, I feel like we're kind of at a point now where that's less of a thing. Like, where there are people who are not necessarily going to just have one platform, or just going to be opposed and like not going to go for the PC. But I mean, Cuphead, like according to Steam Spy, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million sales, and like, not to disparage Cuphead as a platform, but that seems consistent with the total amount of people in the world who would be interested in Cuphead. Not anything, not because Cuphead's bad, not because I don't like it, because it's a fucking 2D platformer.
But now, you know, in hindsight,
you're not going to see like Hollow Knight doing 5 to 10 million units, because it's a great game, but it's fucking Hollow Knight. You know, 2 million numbers, 2 million units sold is like the Jesus Christ. That's fucking great. You know, for any game in this genre.
Now to take it back though, Marco. In hindsight, what did you think of the indie showcases from all three companies, and how well do you think Microsoft and Sony will do this on a regular basis like Nintendo's doing, but also for the bigger games? And or do you think they'll still try and do stuff like
let me
E3
answer your
announcements?
let me answer your first question real simple right now so we can get the laughter out of the way and move onward. I don't fucking know. I didn't watch them.
Is this the part where I'm supposed to laugh?
I didn't fucking watch them. Like, I figured that you would just be like, "Oh, haha," whatever.
You got
No,
one
I didn't
from
watch.
her.
I didn't fucking watch them. I just had other shit going on. I didn't watch them. How do I think this is going to be a thing? Well, I feel like them doing this now is them experimenting with the idea of doing it long term and seeing what the response is. I think it's kind of ridiculous that they haven't done it by this point, just because Sony and Microsoft are huge corporations. They're not dedicated to their gaming in the way that Nintendo is, but they are huge corporations.
Right.
And here's the thing. They are very much behind the times with this, which is weird considering how behind the times Nintendo is with so much of their stuff. Like the internet connectivity, things like that. The future is now as it relates to getting your information out there as quickly as possible. There is no fucking reason on earth why you should be relying exclusively on trade shows and magazine reveals in order to get your shit out there. No reason. Streaming is the future, and Sony and Microsoft should have been doing this kind of stuff like 3 years ago.
I would agree with that.
And now that doesn't mean that they're not going to use trade shows, because trade shows are a great way of grouping around different organizations to show off all your stuff in a place where every single journalist that exists in your marketplace is going to want to talk about your shit. Maybe E3 might be taking a hit from all of this stuff, just because, but they're taking a hit in general for a lot of different reasons.
Right.
But GDC is still going to see people from those three groups showing up and like talking up different things. Tokyo Game Show is going to see a whole bunch of different stuff from these platform holders. There's going to be those trade shows that are always relied on because they are the place where you get the biggest news out all in one shot, where they are where the fan base is looking for that. But it's stupid to not be releasing a State of the Union once a month, once every couple of months. It's like, hey, hello to the 30 million people that own our fucking video game platform. Here's why you should be happy you own our fucking video game platform. Like, there's no reason that it should be like, hey, we're only going to communicate with you guys like 3 times a year, and it's only going to be through journalists. No, you fucking have the tools in your hand. The fact that they're doing it was a matter of time. I'm just astonished it took that long.
I feel like, especially nowadays, especially with as easy as it is to consume the content and as easy it is to broadcast the content on things like YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and Mixer or whatever it is that you use, like all of these different platforms have ways of being able to do any sort of like content like this. The fact that Nintendo's been doing it for a couple of years now is like paramount to the fact that Sony just now decided, hey, this is the thing we're going to do. We're not going to be at E3, so now we've got to do these video series. You shouldn't have said that like this year. You should have said that like 2012, 2013, 2014. You guys should have been slowly working towards that. And now like you hit 2015, 2016, 2017, where this content is much easier to get and much easier to digest now, especially with the shorter videos that you see hitting, things like, platforms that are built specifically for this. And then you have the ability to put these smaller snippets of like, here's this trailer from our State of Play thing on other smaller social media sites like Twitter and Instagram and Tumblr, because these are places that people are digesting all of this content. People aren't going to want to watch the whole thing. They're only going to want to watch the part that they're interested in on these other types of social media sites. But having the ability to have something like this, the fact that it did take them this long blows my mind. Like, like Mark touched on, it's like there's no reason why this should not have been a thing at least a couple of years earlier than this, purely because of the fact that we have the ability to just have this sort of stuff happen right now. So it's crazy. I don't get it. Is it going to be something that's worth having every couple of months? Absolutely, because obviously if you're not going to be, the one that's I wouldn't say important, but the one that's popular in the States, which is E3, then yeah, you're definitely going to have something released that's 15 to 20 minutes long that appears, or even 30 minutes long, that appears during that time frame. Even if you're physically not at the show, you're still going to need content for that time frame when E3 actually occurs. Otherwise, now you're really missing a demographic and you've made a poor decision for business, but that's beside the point. But, there's reasons and places for this sort of content, and the fact that it's taken them as long as it has, and the fact that this content is coming out in these sort of waves at this point really should have happened a long time ago, and I don't get it. I don't know why it took them as long as it did. I'm happy they're doing it. Am I gonna watch all of them? Probably not, unless I'm aware of the time frame.
In terms of the
news
time,
comes in spurts, and I'm getting to that. News comes in spurts. Different types of news happen during different times of the year. As we get closer to the big shows, E3, TGS, CG, GDC. Sorry. Those are the times where you're going to see videos come out with larger content or bigger announcements. I assume that at this point, we already know that by the time this time next month, Nintendo probably isn't going to release a direct because the major announcement information has already happened at this point. But as we get closer to E3 again, they're going to put another video package together, which will, of course, include who the second person is going to be for the Fighter's Pass for Smash. Because why wouldn't they? That would be really stupid. Unless there's another major event that's happening before E3, which I doubt. Other than maybe EVO, they might release something at that point. But let's be honest, that's happening in August. So it's like, we might get that then, we might not. We might wait until E3 to get it. Nintendo is really picky when it comes to the FGC, but that's a totally different conversation for a totally different time that I'm not going to have right now.
In regards to the time, I was actually not going to talk about when they would choose to have the events, around bigger events like trade shows, but more like it's a request. Hey guys, can you not do this at fucking 10 a.m. in the morning when I'm at work so I can at least watch these live when they happen? I would love to do a live reaction video.
As opposed to 10 a.m. at night?
Oh.
Dick.
Hello?
But I'm talking about more maybe do it in the afternoon, let's say they did they like
Nintendo
doing this
directs at 2:30 in the afternoon.
I've never seen one done at 2:30. They're usually doing it at 10 a.m. PST is usually when they do their directs. I've only had to sit in for maybe two of them in the past 10 years.
Think about who they're catering those times to. As I knock over cans, that was classy.
Maybe you should clean your room.
Catering this. I have 2 cans. It's whatever. From an hour ago. Think about who they're catering these to. They're not catering them to us. They're catering them to the news people, to the gaming community in terms of the business aspects of it. So if they're doing it at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, that makes sense. If they're doing it at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a huge difference in the demographic that you're aiming towards. At that point, now you're just we get that these are for the fans and for the players. But they want a lot of this news to hit the news sites first so that they can get that canned reaction and then let the people actually have a chance to sort of see exactly what's really going on for it. That's why these happen so early in the morning. It's the only thing that makes any sort of logical business sense, because this is a purely business decision. This has nothing to do with whether or not the fans want to do a live co-stream on Twitch, because that would be cool. we're aiming these towards the business people. We're aiming this towards these other companies that have these games on our platform because they want to be able to see the reaction as it sort of happens across the day, because that's what makes better business sense for them. So that's why these happen so early. If they did something like, I don't know, if they did a thing like what Ed Boon did with the Mortal Kombat reveal, the fan event reveal, that would be kind of a thing that would make more sense, because they're like, this is planned. We know this is the time. People set up the time frame so that they can be at this event or be online for the reveal for this event. So it made sense because they planned that. So it was like 11 o'clock in the afternoon. Everyone's, in the morning, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on where you are in the time zones. But there it was. It was during a time that was catered more towards the fans, not the media. But then you've got like the big three. These guys are going to release early morning because that's what makes business sense. So the reason why that happens is purely because of that.
Okay. Well, this has been the longest show we've had in a while, Mark. Can you believe that?
I mean, we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do. I mean,
a lot of shit happened. What are you talking about?
A lot of shit happened, and a lot of shit just comes off the top of our heads.
Well, it's not just that a lot of shit happened. It's shit happened that we actually, A, want to talk about, and B, have things to say about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, speaking of things to talk about, I know you got a lot to say, Mark, so me and Jen are going to get what we can out of the way before we let you go. So,
okay.
Last topic of the night, we're going to be talking once again about the Epic Games Store. I feel like we're beating a dead horse here, Jan.
No. We're not.
But it's fun.
No, it's not. It's awful. And I'm going to tell you two things. So PC gaming up to this point has never been exclusive. You've always had a means to being able to go to whoever it is that you want to go to, be it a physical location or a digital platforming, especially in the last few years, to get the games that you want. It's never been locked to a specific platform before. Up to this point, Epic Games has now done it 3 times in the last 6
there was Mass
months.
Effect 3 on Origin.
That is an EA decision. That is not we locked it, because it was never once ever available on Steam, ever. They never announced it was going to be on Steam. They flat out stated that when you were going to get it, if you're going to get the digital version of this game, you are only going to be able to get it on Origin. It was never a pretense that you were going to be able to get it anywhere other than on Origin or a physical store. That is a different issue.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is the fact that these games were originally touted to be on Steam. Division. Metro. And now there's a third one, and I know I'm blanking on what it is, but there's a third one now that just happened.
Outer
Worlds, thank you. Outer Worlds was also supposed to be on Steam, was touted to be on Steam, had a page already on Steam.
Phoenix Point's another one, yeah.
Yep, Phoenix Point. There are so many games now that have just started being like, we're going to be on Steam, it's going to be released, here's the pre-order page. And then Epic Games bought the rights exclusively for a 1-year timed exclusivity on the Epic Store platform, specifically for that. There's no reason to do that. And because of the fact that something like this has happened now we have this whole idea that this is it's good for competition. No, it's not. It's awful.
No, it isn't.
It's absolutely awful. There are 2 things that I've done in the last 6 weeks. 1, cringe. 2, uninstall Epic. Now I've been...
Well, hey, now your data's safe.
Huge. My data was never safe in the first place, but that's beside the point. The very first thing that made my decision to like Epic Games in the first place was Unreal. Not just the engine, the game. I played Unreal, Unreal 2, Unreal Tournament, Unreal Tournament 2K3. I was semi-pro on 2K4. I love Unreal Tournament. I think it's one of the coolest FPS games that ever existed. It was such an original concept. It took the idea of what you did in Quake and it sped it up to this just insane speed that made sense. And they added game modes that were original for the period, and it made sense because it worked in the game. And I was a huge fan of the Unreal Tournament series. Then Cliffy B decided, hey, we're going to do all this other really cool stuff. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll keep an eye on it because it's using the Unreal Engine, and it's one of the industry standard systems that's used in almost 60, maybe 70% of all games uses Unreal Engine. It's a good engine. It works very well.
Except in
It
fighting
meshes-
games. That's why they go back to Unreal 3.
They use Unreal Engine 4. Yeah, exactly. But the baseline is this. The concept of buying, literally pocketing money into the developers, hands, and saying you're only going to release this game on the Epic Games platform because
As
we
if
need
88% wasn't enough for them. Now, here's the thing I want to say about that real quick. I can see why developers would want a bigger cut of the pie, because you're asking consumer to switch platforms to get your games off of this lesser-known platform for digital distribution. Of course, they're going to want a bigger amount of pie to make up for the lack of sales that they're going to get from the games on that platform. So, in the end, it really does nothing but hurt the developer in the long run, and I'm really hoping these companies realize that real quickly and drop Epic like a fucking rock, or they have a nice talk with Epic Games. And here's the thing I want to talk about real quick. Richard for ViewTech, for whatever reason, is convinced. He seems to be sold on the idea of the Epic Game Store. He's not a fan of the data mining, but he thinks Steam should follow suit and increase the developer's share from 70% to 88%. No, that just hurts everyone in the long run. I mean,
I'm sorry.
no.
How is that hurting the developer?
Yes and no, not really.
Not hurting the developer. The developer will definitely, yes, be getting more money from Steam. But like on smaller platforms like Epic Game Store, if you're exclusive, you're not going to get as much money as you think.
But Steam should absolutely increase their market share.
Absolutely.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that, like, make it reasonable, maybe. I mean, keep it competitive, yes.
Look.
I don't like. This is the thing. 88% is not a particularly large amount of money to jack up to when all they're providing is a fucking server farm. You know, all they're providing some useful services outside of that, but these are services that have existed as they do now for years. For years. What is Valve actually value adding at this point to the sales process beyond the fact that it's Steam? Like, they're 18% on a particularly successful game is still pretty much enough to guarantee them for the year. It's not like they're doing all the crazy shit they were doing a couple of years ago, where the Steam Summer Sale actually had like this goofy little clicker game built into it, and they you could kind of sort of see the money on the screen. Like, their service is becoming more and more automated as days go on. Less and less people are directly involved in the process. What does Valve need this money for? They're not developing games. If they were developing games and that money was going into a new Half-Life, I would say, sure, I understand where you're going with that.
At this point, I would rather there be a Portal 3 than a Half-Life 3. I'm just putting that out there.
No, but just in general, they're not developing any games. They still don't know how to fucking count to 3. And we're very much at the point right now where I have to ask, where is this 30% you're taking going? 12% is enough for what you fucking provide at this point as a platform holder. Like, because they are not providing anything but a whole bunch of semi-transparent rules to the people that are selling products on their service. The Valve of like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, sure, I could justify that. The Valve of right now, they don't deserve the fucking money that they're asking for because they don't do anything.
The other issue I really have with the Epic Games Store is that it's so bare bones. It doesn't play like, there are people that are out there that are defending the Epic Games Store to a point where they're like, we have time. We have time to make this better. No, you don't. Fuck you, you don't. The reason why you don't is because you guys let this company release this bare bones concept of an idea that's basically just a cube. There's nothing in this cube but the games, and you can shake it around and you can hear the games in there, but that's all you've got. There's nothing left in there. Friends lists, automation, gameplay, secure money purchasing, the fact that you can act more than once, a cart, things that are basic that exist in other things like Uplay and Origin. Hell, even on websites like GMG and GOG and all of these other websites with no DRM. All of these guys have all of these basic functions because Steam has these functions. You have all of these other platforms you could have based the Epic Game Store off of, and you didn't even do that. You're like, oh, well, of course it's not going to have anything like that. It's brand new. It fucking better have all of these things because it's brand new. If it doesn't innovate on these things, I'd be shocked. Which is why I'm so upset about it, because it's like I used to absolutely love the Epic platform because heaven forbid they make another Unreal, but then there's like all these other games and the engine's great and you can make all this stuff with it and it's really good for programming on, and now they're shit. Like Epic Epic at a point lost my interest, and now at this point I just vehemently disagree with anything coming out of people's mouths because of the fact that at this point they've done nothing to innovate any of these things that could have been innovated, any of these things that could have been integrated, for crying out loud. You had games released on Steam, and you're just upset that Steam didn't help you market your games, and that's why you're making your own store. Bethesda, for the sake of all that's fucking holy, Bethesda's game store is still better than the Epic Game Store, and it's still shit.
Hey, Mark, you couldn't get your... did you manage to get your Morrowind free game?
Yeah, like 12 hours later.
At least they worked on it.
Yeah, they helped you out there, at least, yeah.
The primary problem... the primary problem that I have with Epic, just as a concept of what they're doing with the game store, is basically they've taken this noble idea of basically going, "Ooh, hey, you like Fortnite, right? How about all these other cool third-party games that you could totally also play on this platform that we have Fortnite on?" Because that's basically what this is. If at some point these games don't start putting in Fortnite ads into these other games, like World of Tanks did with Left Alive, I would be shocked.
The only thing that'll win me over now to go back to Epic is if they release a brand new Jazz Jackrabbit.
You have very strange priorities, sir. I just want you to
Bad
know.
joke.
I literally have no words. I literally have no words for that. You're a horrible human being for that.
Yes, I am a horrible human being.
I don't know, man. Like Epic
As
Games
many
at this
as
point is
just
a
like
terrible
all the people
concept.
pointed out on Mark's Twitter, I'm a horrible human being.
Oh well. At least we know you're not a Nazi.
Listen. That is not my fault, okay? Even I looked at that first response and I was like, "The fuck you just say?"
Oh.
If you had said the first time what you said the second time, we wouldn't have had that problem.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't type it out right.
Yes. I feel like from now on, when you reply to me, you should just send them to me and just be like, "Does this sound right?" And then I'll just tell you, "Yes, this sounds right," and then you can post it.
Hubs need a proofreader going forward. That's probably for the best. Just stick it in Discord. It'll be fine. We'll only laugh part of the time. We promise.
Yeah, as far as you know, I won't be laughing at you.
As far as you know. Oh. Look, all
Mark,
I'm gonna say
you're
about
always
Epic
laughing at me. Don't lie.
Yeah, but you don't know that.
I know that.
You don't know it. You have suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
You suspect based on previous situations and understood data that it is very likely to be true, but you have no actual proof that it is occurring.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when, but I do know it happens.
As far as Epic Games is concerned, at this point, the only thing that I can say is I don't know that there's anything that can redeem them at this point. Everything has gone to shit. They're buying out exclusives, which, let's be honest, even in a console market day right now, something like that still is just the only reason people play the games at this point is because we've grown up with them. Console wars died last gen, period. At this point, it doesn't matter what I'm playing it on. I just want to play the games.
Mm-hmm.
If that means I have to buy one system specifically to play one game, that's exactly what I'm going to do until it's released on a platform that works for me. I play the game to play the game. The only reason I even bought an Xbox in the first place was for 2 games. 2. That was it. I bought it for KI, and I bought it for the Panzer Dragoon style game that came out, and that was it. That was it. I didn't play anything else that wasn't already on the PC or the PS4 at that point. Because accessibility, console exclusivity just isn't a thing that's going to sell me on a console anymore. It's a matter of, is the game going to be good? If I'm going to go and buy a system because that's the system the game is on, then I'm going to buy the system because that's the system the game is on. At this point, the only reason I don't own a fucking Switch is because all of the games that I actually care about are on PS4 or PC. And the games that are going to be coming out on Switch are the only reasons for me to get a Switch. And that's, Daemon X Machina and Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all I care about. I don't need a Switch for anything else.
No, you don't. I mean, Pokemon's already going to take away, 2/3 of your life.
Look, I'm a weeb, but I don't care about Xenoblade. Go figure.
That's perfectly acceptable. I mean, they're big-ass games that require really, really huge amounts of dedication.
I mean, it's an RPG. It's a JRPG. I love JRPGs. I'll play JRPGs all the time if I really want to. I can go out in the living room right now and play on my roommate's Switch and play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 if I really wanted to. But I don't, because I don't really feel like putting in that kind of time, because I have way too many of the backlogs of games that I'm actually interested in playing on my PC and on PS4 right now. So at this point, if I really wanted to, I could, but I'm not going out of my way to do so because I have way too many other games that are just holding my interest at this point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so conversation's winding down. The night's winding down. Our longest show in about 2 years.
I didn't get to say my piece yet.
No, please continue.
Oh, really? That
by all means, Mark.
The floor is yours, Mark.
Jim Sterling released a video on the Epic Store today.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and you would think that Jim's video would have been, very vitriolic, very, Jim. And it was not. I hesitate to use the B word when discussing Jim Sterling because I do legitimately like him and I do legitimately think that he is, a good person as it relates to the content that he creates and the way that he advances the sorts of causes that he does.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely felt like he was being biased in favor of the Epic Store in this video.
Really?
And I didn't like it. Like, he was cracking down on them, but like a lot of the major condemnations, like he talked about console exclusivity. Platform exclusivity, and he didn't really seem to think it was particularly bad, which was kind of like not a fan of that. He did dunk on the Phoenix Point exclusivity because when you're a crowd-funded game, you absolutely need to be extremely transparent with where your money is going, what is going on with it, and why. And the fact that a crowd-funded game that had specifically sold itself on Kickstarter under the idea that you would be able to get that game via GOG and via Steam, going exclusive that way, it doesn't really matter what your reason is. You're telling the people who paid money for your thing, who paid money to get your product out there, one thing, and then you're doing something else. That's not a great look. And like he seemed just very defensive towards the exclusivity stuff. Like he didn't think it was as big of a deal, which, okay. I definitely agree that the Metro situation was fucked. And I think the people who are pissing and moaning about the Outer Worlds situation right now can probably shut the fuck up, because you've got like 6-8 months before that game is even a thing. Sometimes there are going to be games that are going to be launched on Steam, and then that's going to be negotiated. This isn't Metro, where it changed like less than a month before release, and your pre-order got, thrown down the hole. Like, I'm not going to buy it on the Epic Store regardless. I'm just going to buy it on the PS4 if I play it. Like, I don't like the idea of the exclusivity at all. I understand why it exists particularly with certain platforms, but it just very much felt like Jim was glossing over that, like he didn't care at all. And like I didn't think that did not feel like a thing that Jim Sterling's son would have let go. Like that he would have probably like at least like given that a bit of a jerk off motion. He did not really touch upon any of the issues that the Epic Store has had with collection of customer data well above and beyond what it is that they should be collecting. Like, I've had people that I've talked to since then who've justified the collection of your friend data because you can import your friends from the Steam store to the Epic Store. So if you have friends that do have both, you can easily find your friends on Epic. That's fine. Like I don't hate that. If you give your permission for that, that's okay. The rest of the information that it's collecting, that's a huge violation of an invasion of my privacy. And Jim said nothing about it. He was very much like he was critical of the fact that they have a 2-year roadmap to get their platform to the same level that Steam's at. Mm-hmm. But it's just he didn't really have anything to say about it. It was just the weakest fucking tea from a guy who is decidedly pro-consumer to serve up, and I was just like, all right, I get that you support the Epic Store, Jim, but what the fuck? Listen, let's take for a moment, the data stealing that they're doing, because it's theft. It's fucking theft of your data. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to do a class action lawsuit on it. Nothing's going to happen with it, but they're stealing your data for their own use. And I uninstalled my Epic client the exact second that I got definitive confirmation that was happening. Because I don't want that fucking shit on my computer. It's one thing if I know what you're taking, and if mostly what you're taking is to recommend more products to me. It's not a world I think is great. I don't love that, but I accept that's mm-hmm. part of where we're going. Why do you need to know about my Steam information, Epic? Why do you need to know what games I have for Steam? Why do you need to know that Steam exists at all? Why do you need to encrypt that shit into a file on my fucking drive that I can't goddamn access? Fuck you. But then, of course, there's the fact that, okay, as one of the folks I follow on Twitter, Ms. Casey Explosion, was discussing, she was talking about an issue that many people, Jim amongst them, have been harping on for a while, where they talk about the idea of there needs to be content curation in Steam. Steam needs to be able to reject all of the stuff that just sucks from their platform. And that has been a thing Jim has harped on for a while. Today, yesterday, Epic Base released a thing that says they're not going to have shitty games on their service. They're not going to have trash games on their service. Okay. Who decides that? Mm-hmm. Because there's 3 possibilities there, and this is the thing, all right? I have never been somebody who has agreed with the idea of curation on the Steam storefront. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's a good idea. I think we live in a video gaming ecosystem where we should be able to rely on, whether it be people who purchase the game, or journalists, or enthusiast sites, or YouTube content creators, or whatever, to mm-hmm. tell us if a game is good or bad. There are lots of people who have curation pages, and not everybody updates their content. It's not a perfect system. Journalists generally are only going to review the games that get them the most clicks. A lot of YouTube content creators are going to review the games that get them the most clicks. We live in an attention-based economy, and it sucks. But it still does at least allow us some degree of capability to, if nothing else, look at some of the user reviews and attempt to draw conclusions, things of that nature. If Steam gets involved in that and says we're not going to let games onto our platform for certain reasons, where does that stop? And how do you decide that? Mm-hmm. Because one of the things that Casey pointed out in her Twitter thread was that when they originally had curation before Greenlight happened, curation was done in part by experiences that the curators had. So what happened was, when Greenlight existed, and a whole bunch of visual novels got greenlighted because the fan base wanted those things on Steam, the curators were surprised. They were like, oh my god, we didn't realize people would want that many visual novels on our platform. And yeah, okay, you're going to have those people who are going to be like, Steam is full of weeb trash now. Fuck you. You can fucking mute the tag. You don't have to buy it. Shut up. There should be no curation by individuals working for Steam, because you can't guarantee that they have the knowledge to be able to say if something's good or bad. If you have a bunch of people in there who just don't like a particular genre or don't care for it, you're going to start seeing a whole bunch of stuff that's good getting rejected because a curator doesn't have the exposure to it. If you curate by automation, the machine is going to start throwing shit down the well because it doesn't know exactly what it's looking for. So you're going to get either false positives or stuff not being rejected that should be.
It's the Pandora algorithm all over again.
Yeah, and if you allow, some type of curation by a consumer, not to the extent where you just don't buy the games you don't want, as Normaya in the comments is mentioning, but something where like the consumer is actually capable of making recommendations by way stuff is purged from the service, that like maybe you'd purge the slaughtering grounds or something like that by having it be flagged down by users. That's abusable. People are going to abuse it to get rid of stuff they don't like. Imagine a world where Steam allowed curation in that way, and suddenly Metro Last Light gets fucking flagged off of their system. Because that's what would have happened. Curation
exists in a way that it can murder something purely just because of outside forces. Something like what happened with Metro in the Epic Game Store in the first place, where all of the other Metros could now just not exist on Steam anymore because everyone basically decided, oh, they sold out to a company that sucks. Bury the rest of the other games, where the games could be good and people could still want to play them, but now they don't exist in any sort of fashion on the system, on that system, because it got absolutely just shoved off because of consumer curation, because of outrage at what happened with the new game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that review bombing is great. Like, it's not a tactic I endorse, because a lot of people abuse it and use it in ways that it absolutely doesn't need to be used in. I understand why people were upset with Metro. I don't think the Outer Worlds anger is justified necessarily, because it's that's a company who isn't releasing their game for a while. You've got an opportunity there. But the Phoenix Point anger, the Metro anger, 100% justified. Absolutely think that you can and should be upset about the fact that stuff that you were told was going to be on a platform and that you invested money into being on that platform is no longer going to be on that platform, because you don't know how people are going to feel about the Epic Store. But okay, so when Epic comes forward and they say, we are not going to allow for crappy games to be on our service, what does that mean? Does that mean that they're going to have internal in-house curation? Because if so, what are you going to prevent from being on your service that I actually want to purchase? Because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Are you going to have it be by algorithm or via automation? Because, okay, how long until an actual quote-unquote not crap game gets delisted before you have to completely, reconsider that policy? And like they've also said, porn games aren't going to be on our service at all. Okay, what qualifies as a porn game exactly? Like, I know you're getting in your digs, haha, rape day, sure, whatever, but does Honey Pop 2 count as a porn game? Because I don't like the developer of Honey Pop 2. I think he's kind of a jerk ass, but I think his game deserves to exist on your platform. And if you're saying this can't be on here because of some nebulous reason, because porn, fuck you. About Lady Killer in a Bind. I'm not a fan of Christine Love, but I think her games deserve to exist on these platforms. Are you going to ban those too? where does porn start and stop? Like, here's the thing. Valve basically saying we don't want this involved in any capacity. Like, we don't want to be involved in this unless a game hits certain metrics we can't deal with, is absolutely them saying, you know, we do not want to have to police the content on our platform, but we're going to have to because PayPal and Visa are going to come to us and they're going to shit. If we give you guys rules, you're just going to skirt the edges of them and make stuff that we're going to have to actually go and change the rules on to be dicks. Mm-hmm. So the option for us is don't give you rules at all. Just give you a general guideline and then don't tell you what you did to fuck it up because we're probably being told to take it down by Visa and PayPal. Like, it sucks that they have to do it that way, but it's the same way Twitter does business, and I kind of can't blame them, because the guy who made Rape Day, if they had stringent rules in place to prevent stuff like that, probably would have just made his game right at the outside edges of what those rules consider to be reasonable, and would have forced Valve to say, well, you can't do that either. And then would have bitched that they didn't break the rules. It's it sucks. I don't like it, but it's not like they're doing it because they want to. They're doing it because they're beholden to payment processors who are still stuck in the 19 goddamn 40s, and you need to point your finger in the right direction. What Epic is saying is, we just don't want to get involved in that at all, so we're just not going to carry this shit. And yeah, I'm not super sold on the idea of getting Steam from 5 years ago. And you're always going to have curation on any service. You're always going to have curation on any service because payment processors are going to say, we don't want to be having our services involved with that. That's going to fucking happen. Games are going to get kicked off. You can't have a game with, like, you know, mouth pooping or, you know, stuff like that on Steam because, like, PayPal or Visa are going to say, nah, dog, 100% not on board with that shit. And you know what? Like, okay, regardless of whether or not I feel that there's a certain degree of let people like what they like, or, you know, I'm not going to kink shame you, but keep that shit to yourself kind of thing. It's just not going to happen because these payment processors control the world. So Epic is essentially saying we don't want to get involved in that conversation. So what's going to get excised that I might actually want to buy? And then there's the other part of it, which is like, okay, Epic has decided they're not gonna market games to people. There's no automated process to tell you, hey, I want to play this game or whatever. Like, you know, you might want to buy this game. You're just going to be expected to rely on influencers. Great. You mean like the guy who got banned from Twitch for beating his wife, allegedly? Or how about the guy who got banned from the Sims community and streaming for trying to molest children? Or how about the guy that says the N-word and reviews Jordan Peterson books? You know? Like, I don't want you giving those fuckers more power. Those fuckers need less power. Relying on them, having developers give them money to promote their games is literally the exact opposite of a good idea. I'm not saying they shouldn't exist. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be promoting games. I'm saying we absolutely do not need to build a fucking business model around them, you goddamn idiots. So yeah, fuck the Epic Store, collectively. The only, and I want to stress this, the only good thing that they have going for them is that they're putting more money into the pockets of the developers and the publishers. That's it. That is fucking it. I don't care about the exclusivity necessarily, because that was going to happen no matter what. There's always going to be situations where that's the thing. It sucks. I don't like it, but I get why it happened. Literally everything about the Epic Store is the dirt goddamn worst. I don't like Steam. I think that they've made many bad decisions, but I don't have to like Steam to think that Epic sucks. And it's just it's just deeply depressing to me that, you know, we're in a position right now where the people who should be helping warn us against that and preventing us from being stuck in this position are the people who are like, they're not that bad.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark.
Of course.
So I will now declare this to be the end of the show. Before we go, we shall plug what we do. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is GVN Live, a bi-weekly live podcast we do every other Tuesday. The next episode will be in April 9th. And starting next we didn't really talk about it that much, but we're gonna call it now. Opposite Tuesdays of the GVN Live podcast, we will be doing something new called GVN Live Plays. And have we fully agreed on what game we're going to play for our first session next week? Is it the Viscera cleanup detail?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
we're that's what we were going to do.
So the three of us are going to be a bunch of knuckleheads, and we're going to pick up body parts.
Oh boy!
Yeah. So there we go. We now have a show that is going to be weekly. For me on this channel, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are my normal stream days. Monday is usually Monster Hunter Mondays, where I'm playing Monster Hunter World or Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, which is what I actually have been playing lately for the past few months. Tuesday is, again, on and off GVN Live Podcast, and then now, starting next week, GVN Live Plays, all starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Wednesday is my Three Vets and a Noob show, where me and three other guys go off and play all kinds of random stuff. Usually we were playing Phantasy Star Online 2 for the longest time now, and for the last couple weeks we were playing Worms WMD. Don't know what we're going to play tomorrow, but hey, good shit. Also starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, and that's a weekly show. So, Mark, what do you got going?
I'm doing my live streams every Friday and Saturday. Friday, we are still doing Let's Play Friday, where we are playing through one game from start to finish. It is still Super Robot Wars V, because that is a long-ass fucking game.
Yep.
It's probably going to be that way for like another couple of months, if I'm being honest. But so we're still doing Super Robot Wars V every Friday. I have gotten it to the point right now where 3 out of every 4 Saturdays is going to be some type of a variety stream playing whatever game I have available to me at the moment, where the 4th will be a board game night stream, just because it's not really feasible to do a board game night stream every 2 weeks after all. And honestly, people don't really show up for them. So I'm just kind of doing that to like once a month at this point. Then the other, I mean, it's fine. It's not your fault. But it's just every 3 weeks, like 3 out of every 4 weeks, we'll be doing video game streams. And then the 4th week, we will be doing some type of a board game stream, like a physical board game stream here. I may eventually open up another day, like in the next few months, but as it stands right now, that's my schedule.
All right, and Jan, what do you got going on?
Still sort of sticking to the same base. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm streaming on my channel. Tuesdays, I'm here, and I've pretty much decided that I'm taking Fridays off simply just because of sort of how things have been going on as far as working and things like that. And then, depending on just sort of what ends up happening on Saturdays and Sundays, I might throw up a random stream here and there just for things like, I don't know, like Soul Calibur or Tekken or fighting games in general, just sort of like playing with the community that I've gotten here in Idaho. So I've been doing a lot more with those guys, the Big Damage guys here in Idaho. So they've been really cool about that, and we've been putting together lobbies and stuff over the last couple of weekends. So it's been cool. So other than that, that's pretty much it. Nothing really super fancy. Not really dedicating to a specific game right now, simply just because I just don't have anything that I'm currently working on or anything that's like really held my interest outside of what I've been doing with like my MMOs and stuff. So it's pretty much just whatever's up in the air. I'm still on and off trying to get through God Eater 3, so I might finish that here pretty soon. I don't know. I'm maybe about a quarter of the way through the main story. I just hit rank 6, so We'll see.
All right, cool. Our Twitter handles are right there, as you can see. They're below us. For Mark and for Jan, it acts as also their Twitch handle. You're already on my channel, so I don't need to tell you what the address is. So anyway, on behalf of everybody here on GVN Live, I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Whoever the fuck decided to bring 50 people into my show tonight, thank you. You're the real MVP. So thank you so much for everybody tuning in, and have a good night.